Howdy doody, sociologists. Let's talk ethnicity, lesson 13. So our learning goals for today are: you're going to know how language enables inclusion in a society. Last time we looked at barriers to inclusion. Today we're looking at what enables inclusion in society, and most of it is going to be looking at language. And having talked about language, we're going to look at SBS, the Special Broadcasting Service, how that enables inclusion in Australian society. One of the main ways is through language. And you're going to be able to give detailed examples of practices that promote inclusion. Okay, enablers to social inclusion. Being able to understand English. Yeah, that's a huge one. If you can't understand English, then it will be more difficult for you to be included in Australian society. Helps with work, helps with education. I have done a bit of teaching at university, and students whose English is not great because they're non-English speaking, English is not their first language, it's a real struggle. And it helps with community engagement. 4% of migrants under 65 can't speak English. Yeah, so that's a pretty good stat. That's like 1 in 25. However, for migrants over the age of 65, it's double that amount. 8% of them are unable to speak English at all. So obviously, people who are older will find it harder to be included in Australian society because they can't speak English. In 2012, there was a government organisation called the Australian Social Inclusion Board reported on this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was kicking around for about a year, and then it was shut down by the new government that came in. Here's a look at what languages are spoken in Australia other than English. So these are first language speakers. If you have a look there, Mandarin is now number 1. In 2016, we've got 600,000 people. It's probably gone up even more since then. But have a look at some of the drops in some of the other ones. For example, 5 and 6 there. Italian and Greek used to be the highest just 19 years ago, and now they've gone down. So that's probably from first generation migrants who moved over here after World War II, passing away, and so they don't get counted in those stats anymore. You'll see a big rise in languages, Asian languages. Here's another way of representing the same thing. This is the percentage of people who have a language other than English as their first language in Australia. These are the languages that they speak. So huge rise in Asian languages, and also we've got Arabic there, making a big move. Okay, so because we're going to be looking at language as an enabler of social inclusion, the Special Broadcasting Service has made huge strides in that department in enabling migrants to be socially included in Australia. In 1975, the SBS was started as 2 radio stations, one in Melbourne and one in Sydney. It began broadcasting in 8 languages. It was originally just there to tell migrants about government services. And it's very popular, and it's become permanent. So today, it broadcasts in 68 languages. It's got radio stations and TV station. Makes its own shows as well. And it shows the world news every night. So SBS World News focuses on world news, not national news, not local news. It's a chance for migrants and people who speak a language other than English to get news from outside Australia, from where they might be from. So here's the website for SBS, the Special Broadcasting Service. Got all kinds of content there. It's got that awesome First Australians documentary that we've looked at a little bit. So if you just have a look here, just even at their homepage, look at the diversity of the types of faces that we're seeing here. Yeah, it's not all just old white men. So we've got go back to where you came from. This is a really interesting documentary looking at how Australians respond to refugees and asylum seekers. We've got another documentary series called Immigration Nation. Something looking at Australia's gender bias. Living Black, which is a whole TV show. And then, as we mentioned, one of the benefits of SBS is that it gives people information in their own language. So right here, coronavirus info in your language. And if you wanted some information that was in a language that you spoke, look at all of those languages. Let's have a look at Korean. And here's all of that stuff translated into Korean. You know, it's a very, very handy service. If you lived in Australia and you didn't speak English well, you're in the middle of a global pandemic, and you weren't able to access overseas media, that would be really, really useful. SBS has also got a whole section on Indigenous. Let's have a look at that. So here you go. Huge amount of Indigenous programming. Here you go. Good times. So there are many benefits for social inclusion due to the creation of the SBS, such as migrants feeling connected to their home countries. They receive content in their own language, as we saw from having a glance on their SBS website. And it's also the home of football, which is the world's most popular sport, and a sport that a lot of migrants support. And so it's got some football on there. So yay, go SBS! The activity today, I want you to go there, bit.ly/OzCulture. There's a list of Australian customs and traditions. So what I want you to do, I want you to answer this question: which Australian customs and traditions mentioned, and any others that you can think of, do you think enable inclusion and belonging? So which parts of Australian culture help others to be included and feel a sense of belonging in Australian culture? Right, here's a video from 1980 when I was 2. This is SBS's opening segment from the first time that they started broadcasting on TV.
Aaron Copeland's Fanfare for the Common Man. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Multicultural Television. I'm Bruce Gingell, and I feel tonight the same enthusiasm, the same excitement and the same unbounded optimism as I did on that day, September the 16th, 1956, when I said, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to television. Because from this moment on, television will never ever be the same again. The people of Melbourne and Sydney now have a 5th channel which will offer you a genuine diversity of choice. Our programs will supplement and complement those programs which you've been watching on the ABC and the 3 commercials, and in my view, the advent of multicultural television is the most exciting idea since television began. Multicultural television is something which will change the viewing habits of Australians as a whole for the better, as surely as God gave us eyes and minds to see ourselves as we are. In Sydney and Melbourne, no fewer than 25% of the homes with a television set are populated by Australians born in a non-English speaking country. These Australians have 2 cultures, the culture they've elected to live in and give to their children, and the culture of their tradition, which, to our benefit, came along with the sweat of their brows in factories, in mines, in development projects, in the service industries and in the professions, as a richly diverse and quite fortuitous bonus. The children of these Australians share the same 2 cultures, and these families are giving us, right now, the same enriching of our basic experience, the beginnings of the new traditions of today's Australia, as that Scots ethnic Macquarie gave us our first notions of a fair go for all, as that Pommy ethnic MacArthur gave us notions of hardy enterprise, is that Irish ethnic...
So, a reflection activity for today is something quite personal. I want you to give one example of a part of your own culture, whatever that means. An example of your own culture that is inclusive of others. An example of your own culture that is not inclusive of others. Write down those two things, please. The fun is the homework, and the homework today is... I want you to spend 15 minutes on this quiz. This is our sociology vocabulary quiz. Just want you to spend 15 minutes on that quiz. We're going to be doing this all year. You're going to get amazing at sociology vocabulary. Yay. Some of you are very keen, and so you should be, because sociology rules. And if you are, read pages 102 to 104 from the SEV sociology textbook. And check this out. This is SBS being discussed in a parliamentary committee. So it's Senator Scott Ludlam questioning the government about SBS. SBS Oz 2020. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching this video and getting stuck into sociology. And always, as always, keep it real.